All right, so before we start this video, reason I did this on my phone, which I never do, is because my computer was doing updates and it was taking forever. And I had already scheduled for Scott to do the interview at 8 o'clock, so we just used Zoom on my phone. So if you see a different format, that's why. But I wanted to get his thoughts on this, the topics that we're going to discuss, the Jon Jones, Tom Aspinall thing, and Tyson versus Jake Paul. I wanted to get it done before these fights actually happen. So, yeah, check it out. As Scott's always got good insights, and I think he had some good points that people haven't brought up about Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. So, check it out. This is Scott Burnett, brother of Mikey Burnett, who used to fight in the UFC a long time ago. And for people watching my show that are old school fans, obviously they know who he is. And yeah, he was a longtime trainer. He trained boxer Alan Green, super middleweight, and trained Zahir Rahim and some other guys. So he's got a lot of experience in boxing, even though he's a bodybuilder now, which you'll see in the video. He's a big guy. So yeah, check it out. And as always, appreciate the support. Subscribe, like the video, and I'll be back to normal format for the show with Ensign Inouye tomorrow. Take care.
This is the Todd Atkins Show, okay? We're talking about Todd Atkins. I've known him for a very long time. Fantastic person, handsome person, and a really tough guy, okay? You're talking about a tough guy. He talks about combat sports. You're looking at Colby Covington, fantastic people in combat sports, and Todd Atkins is a highly respected person. He talks about it all the time. He's got a great show. You're watching the greatest show, okay, the Todd Atkins Show, and you're watching it. I would not want to pick a fight with Todd. I would not want to pick a fight with Todd, so don't miss it. He's got the greatest people and the greatest show, not like the fake news, okay? He's a great show, highly respected, and you don't want to miss it, believe me.
All right, so this is Todd Atkins, and I'm here with Scott Burnett. And today we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to kind of talk a little bit about the Jon Jones, Tom Aspinall, whether he's ducking, whether he doesn't want to fight him, whether he does want to fight him, that kind of thing. And also a little bit on the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson fight. And Scott, he's been on my show a few times, so guys who've watched my shows are familiar with him. He's a brother of Mikey Burnett, who used to fight in the UFC a long time ago. And Scott, I just want to kind of give you a chance to kind of start in on this Jones Aspinall thing.
Well, we talked about it a little bit briefly off camera the other day, and we've discussed other fighters that have used similar, arguments about why they won't fight a certain fighter, right? John initially had said that he didn't like Tom because he's a-hole, right? And he didn't think he deserved a shot or a chance at his title or whatever, or that it wouldn't do anything for his career. Now, we've heard this many times in fighting. Fighters a lot of times will get to where they start to reason why they won't fight somebody, and they've watched. Obviously the fight sport has a long history of people that have walked away punch drunk or injured or with CTE or a lot of other problems. And it's my belief sometimes that they believe that it's not going to help. It's not going to help me to go into this fight, much like we talked about with Canelo. So why should I? So that's whenever they start to say things like, well, I'll fight him like Canelo did for 200 million. Or Jon Jones will make a ridiculous thing that he knows that how much he wants to fight for it. I don't know what his contract negotiation is with UFC or what he's got going on with Dana there. But a lot of times they'll price what we call price themselves out. So there's, again, back to what I've said in the past, what he thinks is best for him and what the public wants to see, right? In this case, you know, if I was working with Jon Jones, I personally would not have had him discuss that on camera with the press. And it's not for any other reason than to take away his focus on what's in front of him, which is his fight coming up, right? And to go into it with a 3-minute dissertation on why he shouldn't take this fight or what his reasoning is, to me, it kind of screams of you don't want to fight the guy because you feel like he may be a problem for you. And he's not a guy you want to go out on, losing to possibly. And you probably, to be honest with you, don't like how you match up with him. That's my take on it. Now, Jon's a tough guy. We know that. He's one of the best to ever step in the octagon. There's no question. But I think that when you start to look for reasons why or why out of a fight, and he has his own reasons why, I think the public's gonna speculate a little bit about why you're doing it. It's my opinion.
Yeah, and I think I've been watching kind of the fans' reaction, and they think that he's just kind of playing around, and eventually he's going to do it. But what I was saying is Canelo's gleefully not fighting Benavidez, even though all the fans want him to. So why would it's perfectly conceivable that Jones is doing the same thing.
Well, I think if we're being honest, I've heard fighters many, many times talk about how there's guys that walked away and they were punch drunk and didn't make this money or that money or whatever. But I think everybody plays a little bit off Floyd's script. Don't you think? I mean, Floyd walked away, one of the richest guys ever in the sport, and pretty much unscathed, really. I mean, he didn't take it. We never saw him take any punishment. He got in trouble maybe 2 times in a fight. I think once was with Shane Mosley. But he walked away unscathed. He didn't put himself in harm's way, so to speak. And to a lot of guys, that's good business. That's one thing that's happened to the fight game, which we can get into in discussing, that's changed to from where you guys saw guys in the 50s, 60s, 70s go mano. And they were just, Roberto Duran comes to mind with that. He pretty handily beat Sugar Ray Leonard in the brawl in Montreal. And, he a lot of times would get out of shape after a fight, which he did. And Don King and Ray Leonard kind of devised a plan to catch him out of shape, right? So you're not really going mano with him again. You kind of want to catch him. There's a lot of tricks in the game, right? It's just like Jon Jones. If I feel like I got the guy a little bit, if I got the advantage, like he don't match up with me well, why wouldn't you take the easy money the good money, right? Instead, you're reasoning, like, it's not worth it to me to lose to that guy because I don't like him, and it would tarnish my career, especially if he didn't materialize in anything after me. Everybody's got an opinion on it. To me, the guys in the 50s and 60s were a lot tougher. They didn't have the PEDs. They didn't have the trainers. They had trainers, but it was more psychological. They were tougher people in a lot of ways. And we're seeing a lot more people looking at it from a business perspective. And maybe rightly so. They have a great argument for it. There's so many people that walked away with a lot of mental problems and a lot of physical problems from the sport and a lot of scars. So they want to take it that way. But, when you got to compare them to, Jake LaMotta and Sugar Ray Robinson and, and some of these guys from the past, Ali, those guys didn't really duck people. They didn't look for an excuse. They didn't tell the press a story. They didn't tell them this, why, or whatever. They were great fighters, but they were also tough mentally. And again, I'm not taking away things. We're living in a different society and time. but I think a lot of guys have seen a way to have a long lasting career, maximize and monetize, making the most amount of money with the least of, and coming out the unscathed as much as possible, right? The least amount of attrition in my body. And I think we see that. They turn it in kind of a business, So, I think too, they realize that a lot of the fans don't really know the difference a lot of times. You and I've had these discussions before between a really, really, really good fighter and somebody who's, whatever they're going to accept whatever the guy is saying and believe it. He can make it come to life. A lot of the old school fighters like Sugar Ray Leonard and Roberto Duran have called out Floyd, who I like Floyd, but they've said you wouldn't even have been much in our division at that time. You're a mouth, you're a runner, you cherry picked your fights. Was he smart for doing it? Well, a lot would say yes. But he was putting business before machismo, right? Roberto Duran, he didn't do that. So it's all, I guess, what you respect. And in Jon Jones' case, the old school people are probably going to have a little less respect for the way that you handled that question than the new school people who don't really know, the blood and guts guys of the past as well as, say, you or I. Makes sense?
Right, but maybe touch on what you had talked about before with Canelo and
okay, yeah,
and why.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I have a lot of respect for Canelo, but again, you're back to the same thing with what we talked about in the past about David Benavidez. Young, hungry, and it's weird how as you age, when you're 18 to 30, the aging isn't like it is from 30 to 40. The aging could be different from 30 to 32. You could age 3 or 4 or 5 years, right? And Canelo realizes this, and I mean, asking for $200 million for that fight is, to me, if you're asking an old school guy, you're pricing yourself out of the fight. And you're doing it on purpose because you're not really that passionate about that fight because you don't think you might match up that well. And if the guy did get you wobbled a little bit, you might be in some serious trouble, and it might not be worth it to you. You can't, can't have it both ways. With I'm a tough guy, but yet I'm, I don't want to fight this guy because I'm going to get, unless I'm being paid a lot of money to do it, And there's ages, the difference in their age. Canelo might feel like even if I age a year or two more and let him go through a few more wars, kind of like what Floyd did with Pacquiao. He sat back and watched him go through, I don't know how many fights between 2000, 2007 or 8 and like 2000, whatever the fight, whenever it came off, 5 years later, 6 years later, he let him go through, a dozen, I don't know, was it like 8 more wars or 8 more fights? Sure, I'm going to, let you get a little more attrition to your body and a little more worn out, maybe see some cracks in you. And then I'll take it when I feel comfortable. Old school guys would really scoff at that.
Yeah, but I guess, it's hard for a fighter to say, look, I'm older now, and this to fight this guy would not be a safe thing for me to do. I think that's where Jones is. I don't think he's trying to play a game. I think he's trying to tell the fans without telling them that I won all these fights. Why do you want me to fight the next great guy?
I agree. But I'll tell you this too, just a little insider to people who haven't ever been around fighters before. And not all fighters are a little bit different. They're all kind of got their own little quirks about them. Behind closed doors, there's people, whether it's a girlfriend, a wife, an uncle, a father, who say, what, are you afraid of the guy? And, they do. They say those kind of things to them and get under their skin and make them mad. And the fans say it, sometimes the press would be like, are you avoiding the guy or what's your problem with the guy? Or they dig at him, to say, till they're alluding to the fact that, kind of like the sports commentator Brian, his last name slips my mind, got into the argument with Floyd on Sports Center. It's a well documented argument, and they went back and forth, and it was making Floyd mad. He said, well, you want to fight a guy 2 weight classes below you in Marquez. You remember when this took place, right? And it just got under his skin and made him more and more mad, and, Floyd's rebuttal was, I think he said something like, jack of all trades, master of none. You know nothing about boxing. You don't know SHIT about boxing. And they got into a big, long argument, right? Because Floyd was trying to defend his stance on avoiding Pacquiao or whoever at the time, and he wanted to fight who he wanted to fight because he knew he was going to make the same amount of money. There's people who are going to pay to see it. He's going to make a lot of money, but he wasn't in a dangerous situation. It's the same thing that Jon Jones to me is doing, same thing you're saying, same thing that Canelo's doing. And people call it smart business today.
Yeah. I can't criticize him for doing it, really. But like you said, be more open about it. I can see why he's fighting Stipe. They're similar age.
Sure.
They haven't fought much in the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
But don't ask me or argue with me in an open forum, people, if I post that you don't compare to such and such and such and such as a fighter in the past. These guys will dog these guys out, I hear them, they're ruthless with the way that they'll dog out somebody even like Marciano or, somebody from the past or whoever, and just talk so much trash about them as a fighter and have no idea how tough these people were. They're clueless. Or they want to make an argument about who all they think from the last 30 years could beat Sugar Ray Robinson. I'll tell you how many. None. 0 could beat him. Because they weren't not only as talented, some of them were pretty close. They weren't as mentally tough. Okay? Mike Tyson, when he first started, he didn't get up and run 4 or 5 miles every day because he just liked to get up with, and see the sun come up. He did it because nobody else was doing it. Everybody else was laying in bed still, and he knew that. Gave him psychological advantage. These guys were tougher mentally. The fighting is so much mental. And, I think it's been quoted before or something to the effect of it's hard to get up out of bed in a warm bed with silk sheets and go run, when you're doing really well and you've made a lot of money. Why would I want to do something like that? I got this good looking woman laying next to me and I'm living in $1 million home and I got all the luxuries in the world. What do I need that for? I'm not saying a lot of them won't get up and go run and do all those things, but at the same time, there's been a lot of avoiding and fighting. And I think we've seen that it really, boxing, I've never seen a sport want to commit suicide worse than boxing. Never.
I think that's a good parlay next, actually, because circus act.
Yeah, it's turned into a circus act. As a matter of fact, I just watched the Jake Paul and Mike Tyson weigh in, and it looks like WWE. I mean, it was planned. I mean, I'm good friends with Tony Holden, whose son's putting the fight on. He says that it's all for real, and I believe Tony. I don't think Tony's lying about it. I think they both want to win that fight or whatever. But I mean, he wants to promote the fight. I get it, whatever. But I mean, the way he got up there and slapped Jake Paul. I mean, if Mike Tyson was really mad, you think he's going to slap the guy? He's not going to slap him with a right hook. He's going to hit him with a right hook like he tried to hit Vander Holyfield. I mean, not Vander Holyfield. He tried to hit Lennox Lewis. He's not mad. It's WWE. And it's sad to see it do that. It's sad what's happened to boxing. It changed. It had a new challenger for viewership with the inception of the UFC. They both could have coincided together, but the UFC came out victorious. The UFC has fans being born every day. Boxing has fans dying every day. The old school fans are dying every day. You know, the fans from the 50s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s are all elderly and dying. The UFC came along and, you know, they marketed and monetized the sport so well, and the things that Dana White did and the Fertittas did, and taking it from Bob Meyerowitz and moving it forward. It was genius. It was smart. It was great timing. And doesn't mean that boxing couldn't coincide with it. It should be able to, but there was so many clowns in boxing. There's a lot of clowns, and you know, there wasn't a lot of regulation over it for years and years, and it brought on a lot of problems and a lot of crooks. And you know, to me, the same thing with the Jake Paul deal. They can always get the public to drink the Kool-Aid. You know what I mean? They'll always drink the Kool-Aid, Todd. And so they can sell it to them again. And, you know, I get it when Mike Tyson gets up there and slaps him and stuff. We got to sell more tickets, more pay-per-view. People can't watch. I mean, it's not even pay-per-view. I think it's Netflix. I mean, most people have Netflix anyway. I'm sure it'll do, you know, have a lot of huge viewership and might lead to more stuff for them. But it has nothing to do with building yourself up through the ranks and watching a guy build his career anymore, and become a world champion, defend the title, and a really neat story behind it. It's more about, you know, this Instagram viewership, this YouTube stuff, and it's the world's changed. And what people like to watch, you know, and what they think is real is not something Todd Atkins and Scott Burnett, who've been around the fight game and been watching it for 40 years, are going to think is real. But it doesn't really matter what we think. It's what the public will buy, right?
Let's break it down as if it were real, like we were talking about yesterday. Came up with some interesting things that I don't think a lot of people are talking about. Let's assume it's on the up and up here. Maybe talk about some of the things that you think Mike would strike.
Mike would do what? I'm sorry, you cut out.
Remember we were talking yesterday about some of the things that are going to be, you talked about the glove size.
Oh, yeah.
Legs of an older person, that kind of thing.
Yeah. You know, it was interesting. I saw Mike yesterday, and he's being interviewed, and he had a knee sleeve on. There's a lot of strategy you see and stuff like that. The first thing to go on a fighter is your legs. Mike is known to, we know his peekaboo style. He's going to come to the inside. He's going to come after you, right? So I don't know how much lateral movement he's going to have out of that knee. I don't know how bad his knee is, but I know my 55-year-old knees, Phil, and I work out every day. I'm sure at 58 years old, he getting a lot of spring out of his hips and his legs, which is where most of his power comes from, is going to be difficult for him to a degree. He's going to be throwing a little bit more of an arm punch and a little bit less with the hips than what people think. If his knees feel like I think is at 58, they do. And if Evander Holyfield was any indicator of that, when I think he fought Vitor Belfort.
Yes.
Yeah, he didn't look very good. He aged a lot between like 53 or 4, whatever it was, and 58. We talked about the gloves. You've got a 14-ounce glove as opposed to a 12-ounce glove. There's a little bit of a difference. That, I think, it hurts and helps both, right? I mean, Jake Paul doesn't want to be hit by a Mike Tyson punch with a 12-ounce glove on. I'd rather be hit with a 14-ounce than a 12-ounce, especially once it starts getting sweat in and it gets even heavier and makes Mike's arms heavier, right? So, I mean, that's a give and take there. The thing that helps Mike Tyson a lot is that apparently they made the rounds 2 minutes. So, yeah, you know, and he gets 6 minutes of rest or a minute between those 16 minutes of fighting. That's a little more dangerous for Jake Paul, you know, because if Mike Tyson could get off on you, he could. If he did catch you, he does have KO power. We know that. And I don't think Jake Paul's going to come anywhere close to a punch like Mike Tyson. Jake Paul has a youth on his side. He's 27. Mike Tyson's 58. 58 is, a guy 27 obviously has every physical advantage on you. And people can argue it all day, but if I were Jake Paul's corner, I would say this: you're going to have to be in tremendous cardio shape in your legs. We have basically three defenses in boxing, and you got slips, rolls, and we got catches, and we got moving our feet. I would want to move my feet a lot. Make him chase after you, make him chase after you, get the jab on him, but don't let him to the inside. If he gets too close to the inside, tie him up, but keep him out on the end of your jab, because Mike Tyson, that's his style. He's coming to the inside. He's coming to the inside. And so you can better bet he's going to pursue Jake Paul to the inside and try to get off on him there. So, Mike wants to get obviously on the inside and start with his, those beautiful combinations. He'd throw, the left hook to the body, left hook upstairs, uppercut, left hook, right hand, all these combinations he throws, which he used to have a numbering system. I don't know that he even has that anymore, but it used to work beautifully for him. I think that if he can get to the inside of Jake Paul and catch him with a good shot, he's going to have to catch him with a good shot and to get Jake Paul out of there. Or I think, I think Jake Paul is probably going to win a decision. Could be wrong. Mike Tyson have to really surprise me though at 58 years old. I'm not saying he can't win the fight. He could catch him, but I truly don't believe Jake Paul wins either way. If you hurt Mike Tyson, you're going to be the worst human being on the planet. People are going to hate him. They already don't like him, right? So if you hurt Mike Tyson, the only way Jake Paul wins, I think he's making $40 million, right? Mm-hmm. It's really the only way he wins. Right. He's in a lose-lose situation other than that win, right? How else does he win? He wins the fight. Nobody likes. They hate you more.
Yeah, I think if he
hurts Mike Tyson, they really can't stand you. They want to hurt you. That's dangerous to be in that place, right? There's people out there that are. I don't know how many times I've seen a meme this week that said something like, "We can disagree on politics and religion, but I think we all agree that we want to see Mike Tyson kick Jake Paul's butt," right? Yeah. I see it every day. So I think the consensus is, and most of the threads that you'll run down for the general public, is they want to see Mike Tyson hurt Jake Paul to shut him up, right? Jake Paul doesn't win anyway, except that he's getting paid a lot of money.
Also, I think if he hurt Tyson, I think it'd be hard for him to set up the mismatches anymore.
Because I think it would be really, I think,
gone too far this time. We put a 58-year-old in, and this guy got hurt.
And I think it can be dangerous. People are nuts, man. They love Mike Tyson. I mean, you're not going to go anywhere where people are going to be like, I want to go up and shake his hand and take a picture with him. Most people, and let me say this is most people who grew up watching Mike Tyson like yourself and I, and the people today that enjoy his old videos and stuff. I guess there's a big following of Jake Paul that's YouTube that I'm not really familiar with those people because I don't really think they are familiar with what really fighting is. I think they're familiar with the circus and WWE and hype and keyboard warrior mouth, and as Alan Green would call him, telephone tough guy. They're not really used to a guy who's an old school guy. They don't really know that much about it. So I think that the matchup is it only is a matchup because Tyson's 58, right? I mean, but go ahead.
Has always chose. The only time he didn't was when he fought Tommy Fury and he lost. Right.
And it was a pretty close fight, right? It's just how old Mike Tyson is at 58. That's what we got to know. How old is Mike Tyson at 58? 58's up there, man. And how his legs are. He's not going to have great lateral movement, I don't think, at 58 years old. Most of his power, like I said, comes from his his spring and his, he's got good spring, got good power in his hips and his arms and back, but a lot of it comes from his hips, right? You got to be able to bend your knees and box to be able to box, effectively. But as we get older, that spring goes, it'll be interesting to see Jake Paul's strategy and who put the strategy together for this type of fight. When Mike fought Roy Jones here a few years ago, he moved okay, for his age, and he punched okay, but it didn't look like either one of them were trying to hurt each other in the exhibition. And I really don't think I don't think there's either one of these guys want to hurt each other. I really don't think Jake Paul wants to hurt Mike Tyson. And I think at the weigh-in, he told him, yeah, slap me. Get him really hyped. Because it looked like it. I mean, Mike Tyson want to rear back and hit you with a right hook. I mean, come on, man. Even at 58, you're just standing there. You're going to get out. I mean, who's going to want to do that? Not very many people. But I think it was kind of a planned deal, and it looked pretty WWE, if you ask me.
You think Mike was fake looking mad?
Do I think he was what?
He was faking looking mad.
Yeah. Mike Tyson wasn't mad. If Mike Tyson was mad, it would have looked like whenever he fought Lennox Lewis. He was pretty mad then. But he was also selling that for Shelly Finkel because he went back to, his hotel room and he goes, how did that look for selling a fight? It looked good. Sane people that are businessmen, look at this guy and think, this guy's crazy. He was selling the fight. You got to sell the fight. You got to get people interested, Nobody was better at it, teaching somebody than Customato. He knew all the psychological tricks, and, Mike was brought up in it from 12 years old on. It's what made him such a unique. He's kind of an anachronism, and that, he's kind of an error, as they say, in respect to historical dates. He should have been a guy that would have been in the 40s or 50s. He doesn't act like a guy that would have been fighting in the late 80s, 90s, and whatever. He's a total throwback to something that people, are not used to seeing today. That's what makes him unique, right? And of course, he won the heavyweight championship at 20 years old, which made him really unique too. But Customato shaped him in the style of guys who fought in the 20s, 30s, what do you say? I'm Jack Dempsey, I'm Sonny Liston. I mean, he is. He's from that era. His whole mentality, his whole makeup, and that's what they did with him. Cuss brought him up like he did guys back in the 40s and 50s. That's why he didn't have all the Swarovski crystals and all this, pink with fur and all this, and his big persona and tassels from his boots and all this crap. He was just black trunks, black shoes with no socks, and a towel over your head. It meant business, and it spoke volumes, especially in an era where people were Showtime. They were Showtime in it. Trying to look pretty and flashy and all this stuff. It was, but he didn't get into that. And that's what made him unique. Obviously he could fight. He had a unique style, very unique style. And it worked really well for him. Obviously he had some outside influences that weren't very good for his career. I think Teddy had pointed out a really good thing about Mike Tyson in that he had all the tools, but yet, he did too many weak things outside the ring. And I think Mike would admit that. I don't know how he had a very bad cocaine addiction and alcohol addiction. And I don't know how much attrition that had on Mike's body the last 25 years or whatever. I know that can really wear a person out, from the inside out. What's crazy about it is how much talent he really had. If you took him and you took one of the most, disciplined people ever, to fighting, a guy who would never touch drugs or alcohol or, and ran and did all this work every day, Mike would have been, he probably never would have got beat. It'd been very hard for him to be defeated in a fight, I think, because he had all the physical tools. He just didn't always have them between the ears. He had some insecurities and stuff, but he is a unique human being, and we have to pay respect to the fact that we got to witness it growing up in that era, and we got to see something really from a throwback of somebody from the 40s, 50s, 60s, because that's exactly what he is, maybe even earlier than that. Because Cuss was, I don't know, he grew up in the 20s, 30s, way back 30s, 40s, and he trained them like the fighters from that period of time. No nonsense, man. Straight up fight. A lot of respect for one another. Didn't have a lot of the WWE flair we see today. Kind of started with Ali. I think when he said Gorgeous George kind of taught him how to get into, making under public skin and getting them to watch, because there'd be people that want to watch him win and a lot that want to watch him lose, right? Same thing Floyd kind of picked up on, and it sells, right? Puts butts in the seats. But Tyson had a unique style, and he had all the physical attributes, the strength, speed, everything. And he was trained by one of the very best of all time, which made him extremely unique.
How many rounds do you fight if it's on up and up?
Say that again.
How many rounds do you think he has to win the fight if it's a legit fight?
For Tyson?
Yeah.
Well, it's an 8-round fight, right? If it's a are you saying if it's a 3-minute rounds?
No, under the current rules.
Okay.
And if the fight is on the up and up,
Do I think Tyson wins the fight?
to win. First two.
Right. You keep cutting out. You keep cutting out.
Do you think Mike has a chance beyond like maybe the first 2 or 3 rounds?
I think his chances begin to fade, but because the power starts to go. That's what, people dog Rocky Marciano had a lot, but man, to have the kind of power he had 12, 13, 14, 15 rounds, insane. Mike could have it too. I think cardio wise at his age now, I'm not sure that he would, after 2 or 3 rounds is going to have the cardio. I don't think so. He might surprise us, at 58, he would be an anomaly. A more unique anomaly than I think we previously thought, right?
Yeah.
If he's still fighting hard in the 6th, 7th, 8th round, I think even at 2-minute rounds, if he was doing it in 3, we definitely would be like, this guy's not human. I think Mike's best chance is to get him out early.
Yeah. Now, what do you think about Jake Paul challenging Canelo?
Canelo, I think he will get murdered. I think he would get killed. Because here's why. And I know styles make fights. Tommy Fury would get knocked out within 4. Okay. He would hurt Jake Paul. No question. No question. You can take that to the bank, bet the house on it. He doesn't have it. He doesn't, he can box some, but De La Hoya made a good point. He said, he should do cruiserweight and come up through the ranks, The guy can fight some, let's see where he's at, He would run into some problems, man, along the way. I mean, he's like pick and choose and cherry picking his fights on steroids, no pun intended. I don't know if he uses steroids or not. I'm not making any allegation about that, but I'm saying this guy, come on, he's picking exactly what he wants to get in the ring with, That must be, nothing against Tommy Fury. I mean, he's, a little solid fighter, but he's no world beater. Canelo Alvarez, are you kidding me? He'd never be able to whoop Canelo Alvarez his whole life. It won't happen. When Canelo's 50 and he's 43, he couldn't whip Canelo Alvarez.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a fight anyway.
No, I don't think I think it's talk. I think it's to try to really get under boxing people's skin so they'll watch too. I think most people are wanting to watch to see him get beat up, you know. But I think he sells things really good. He's an influencer, right? I don't know anything about this influencer stuff. I mean, there's people every day who join up and train with people and all over the fitness world and all over the boxing because the way they talk or they sound or the things that they're selling. You know, most people are buying bullshit. Let's be real. You know, he's a good sales of bullshit. You know, I'm not picking on his, that he hasn't put the effort out that he can't fight. He can fight, so he can do all these things, but he's selling bullshit, you know. Come up through the ranks, do it like everybody else. You went through YouTube, he's making a lot of money. I'm not faulting him for any of that. But call it what it is, right? I mean, you fought one legitimate fight against a guy who's ranked, I don't even know if he's in the top 10 anywhere. And you lost.
Yeah, goes after this if he did.
Where do I think he goes after this?
No, I'm saying it's hard to imagine where he would go after this if he wins.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't know what he would go to. I mean, if he wins, I mean, I'm sure there'll be more MMA guys that would want to step up and fight him, or you know, um, we'll see. They've always got something up their sleeve, but it'll be something that keeps him kind of safe. You know, I think he tried to do the Tommy Fury fight to kind of legitimize himself about being a fighter. But you know, what's Tommy Fury is not. I mean, this is not about a personal attack on Tommy Fury. He can fight good, but he's not. There's, like they say, there's levels to this, and I'm not saying he couldn't be someday at a certain level. I'm saying he's not at a Canelo level. Don't talk like I think it's the disrespect. Like you want to disrespect boxing and the true fans to really get under people's skin and try to get everybody to watch. They get them to talking about it. I mean, you and I are talking about it. Sure, we're talking about it mainly because Mike Tyson's involved in it. And we started off talking about Jon Jones, and these guys are legitimate fighters or legitimate past fighters. But I think that I don't know where his team. I know Tony Holden really well. I know Bryce really well. Bryce is promoter. Where they go with him next, but it is what it is today with boxing. That's where they are. They've turned themselves into a sideshow. I think, Don King kind of started that a long time ago, didn't he? If it sells and it puts butts in the seats and gets people excited, then let's do that.
Right, but I don't think there's ever been someone they allowed him to fight such like guys that were weight classes below him, guys that were 40 years older than. I don't ever been anything like that in boxing.
I agree, but that's why I say that I feel like boxing will do anything and everything to get people to watch, right? I mean, to me, I think boxing was at one of its best in my lifetime. HBO, what Sid Abrams and those guys did at HBO, it's amazing, amazing. Jim Lampley, George Foreman, Roy Jones, the commentating,
Larry Merchant.
Larry Merchant, you gotta mention Larry. He's an OU guy. But he was very knowledgeable. People hated him, but he looked at it like he wasn't supposed to be the likable guy. He wanted to ask the hard questions, and he liked to get under the boxer's skin and make people irritated and create controversy. He's very good at it, but they still kept it inside the scope of boxing and not too crazy with the WWE stuff. I thought Jim Lampley did. Some people don't like him. I thought he did a great job. I liked him with ABC Sports back when I was a kid, but Manuel Stewart, he had great commentary. You had great commentary. You had good fights, especially the HBO primetime fights, even the HBO After Dark. You caught some good fights, man. ESPN did a good job. Tuesday night fights. They did a great job for years. We had Teddy Atlas and the guys on ESPN, and they had some great fights on there, along with I think Tuesday night fights. We had Sean O'Grady and Oki. He was on there all the time, and he did a great job. He was a really great commentator. They put together really good telecasts with really good fights, with promoters that put together really good cards. It just got spun out of control, man. And the internet helped it spin out of control even more, because what I saw things change when this Real World started. I never watched it, but I'd heard about this. It was called The Real World, where it became reality TV on MTV, and then it bled into everything. And I was like, so what they're kind of conditioning people to, I don't know if they're psyoped or what, they're basically getting people to not pay attention to their own life, but watch somebody else's from TV. And so people are watching Jake Paul, and he's got like a YouTube guy, and they're following him around, and you're watching his life play out and seeing what's going to happen next, rather than watching your own. And rather than leaving it like in the 40s, 50s, 60s, I've touched on about boxing. This guy's a fighter. There's one, maybe two guys that come out of every state that are world champions over a millennia, or over a millennia, 100 years. Now everybody, I'm a fighter. We saw that in MMA. Come on, everybody became a fighter. It got fights in MMA early got watered down. You had a lot of guys in boxing still getting on cards that were like 2 and 128 and stuff like that, which is, why would a freaking boxing convention? What are you doing? What are you doing? You know what I mean? I want to get my guy a few rounds. Just get him a few rounds in the gym. It's embarrassing. It just got a little bit out of control about, becoming a sideshow, and human interest, I think, from television and talk shows, and not to get off into a long-winded thing, kind of bled into the reality TV, which bled into the YouTube stuff and the social influencers on social media through Instagram and Facebook and all these different things. And it's just changed it. It's changed the way that we perceive the world and sports, particularly in boxing.
Yeah. Scott, it's always great to talk to you. I always like to hear your insights.
I don't know if my insights are always right on point, but it's kind of the way I see the world, Todd. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I plan on watching it, so it'll
Sure. Yeah, we have Netflix. I'll check it out. We'll see what it'll be interesting to see the strategy. I don't think either one of the guys really want to hurt each other. They're getting paid a lot of money. Why? I know Jake Paul plays the villain really well, but I don't think there's a chance in hell he wants to hurt Mike Tyson, because I don't think anybody wants to hurt Mike Tyson. I think he'd be crazy. Why would you want to do that?
Right.
He's an American icon that, people love him, and rightly so. He's given up a lot of his life to entertain people in a vicious sport. What makes him so unique too and fun is he's so raw and real. A good friend of mine, Jesse Reed, and I worked a few fights together, and he was working with Mike Tyson, and he said, "Mike, what do you like to do outside of boxing?" He said, "You mean outside, like not in the gym?" He said, "Yeah. What do you like about outside of boxing?" And Mike is so raw and real and honest, like a kid, and people love that, right? He said, "Well, I like strip bars, I like drinking, I like smoking marijuana, and I like fornicating." He goes, then he was so real. He didn't try to lie in any way. Most people would try to hide that kind of stuff. Mike was just as raw as you could be in answering a question. And I think people really love that about Mike Tyson. I think they like the fact that this guy is if you ask him something, he's not trying to hide behind anything, because I don't think he really fears the fact that it may stun you or weird you out or anything. He's just real. He said he does 4 things that hurt the one thing he's the best in the world at. But that's Mike, you know. It made him unique, you know.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see.
It'll be interesting to see. I hope he comes out unscathed, and I hope both of them don't get hurt. But I really don't want to see Mike Tyson get hurt, and like I said, I don't think anybody else does either.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. We always have great conversations, man.
Yeah.
We do. I don't know what it is, but we you know, I think it's just the chemistry. We do real well.
Yeah.
I enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, as always, I appreciate it. And you know, for people that watch this, you know, check Scott Burnett out. He's done a few shows of mine. And yeah, as always, appreciate people that watch this, and until next time, take care.
Hola, soy Litzy La Bomba Dilene, boxeadora profesional de México, y estás viendo el show de Todd Atkins, en donde verás y escucharás a grandes talentos del boxeo. No te lo puedes perder.